listen, that Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this. Catherine Rumler, we need to keep the heat on this case, folks. There are a lot of people who are knee deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And you should be asking yourself the question, how is it that all these people, the CIA director, the Obama fixer, Bill Clinton, all intersected paths with Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein isn't with us anymore, and nobody seems to want to talk about it. Outside of a few entrepreneurial media outlets saying, hey, this is a big deal.
He killed himself. You want me to I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be provided are greater than the quality of legal services provided by other lawyers. You found the Heart of Dixie podcast number 9. My name's Harry Still. I'm an attorney at law in Daphne, Alabama, and today we're joined by our co-host Brandon Mosley, reporter and content manager at the Alabama Gazette. How are things in Montgomery today, Brandon?
Oh, it's kind of slow with everybody taking the day off, but I'm here at the office trying to write stories and do podcasts and do business stuff.
All right. And today we have a special guest, Senator Tom Butler, Republican from Florence, representing Alabama Senate District 2. How are you today, Mr. Butler?
I wasn't from Florence. I'm from Madison, Alabama.
Whoa. Well, you're
about 70 miles.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a wiki page that says you're from Florence.
Yeah, Wiki's wrong.
Wiki's wrong. My fault. But it was an honest one. So I have you have a .com page, Senator TomButler.com, and we're looking at that right now. And then it says here that you received the Alabama Policy Institute Legislative Champion Award for 2024. That was something I was unaware of. And so
that just happened, and I just got the plaque about 3 weeks ago, and I didn't know I was even under consideration for that.
Well, that is, we being conservatives here, we know who the Alabama Policy Institute people are. And so I thought we'd talk a minute about just some Alabama general shooting from the hip stuff here. So this week, the Alabama, I guess it was AL.com, broke a story about Alabama's Republican Party chairman that
somebody overrode you. Repeat that again, if you would.
So AL.com broke a story that John Wall is in fact a gentleman named Nehemiah Ezekiel Wall, and that he's a political strategist. Now this is again his Wikipedia page, so I don't know who updated this, but it says that he's known professionally as John Wall. He's a political strategist and butterfly breeder who is currently the Alabama Republican Party chairman, serving since 2001.
2021,
sorry. And he's the chairman of the Alabama Public Library Service, and that he got into a issue with Moms for Liberty with the Fairhope Public Library. I bring up the butterfly breeder because my nickname for him is Buffalo Bill, which was the bad guy from Silence of the Lambs. But anyway, Josh Moon and some other people are claiming he lives in Tennessee, and I know that's up your way, and just didn't know if you knew anything about there being any repercussions. I know he's taken to the bed or taken 2 weeks off, or
he's on vacation.
He's on vacation right now. But anyway, that's kind of ancillary news to the news that Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth says he will not run for governor in 2026. He announced Wednesday morning that we will not run for governor. attention turns to Senator Tommy Tuberville for what will be a pivotal decision for Alabama's 2026 election. And I think
you brought up a couple of things. One, John Wall. I know John Wall is chairman of the state party, GOP party. He lives, his family does, in Limestone County. And I have met several members of his family. I've known John for a long time, and he seemed to have been doing a good job with the state GOP party. I don't have any complaints about him, or knew he was in the butterfly raising business, but didn't know he lived in Tennessee. Family lives pretty much in Limestone County, which I also represent. At least the eastern part, they live in the western part of Limestone County, and I've got a sliver of East Limestone community in my district.
So, any shock there that Will Ainsworth is out of the race? Is that news in North Alabama? That was certainly news down here. We thought he was
it's news
running
to
hard.
me. I've considered Will as being a sure candidate for governor. He's done a good job as lieutenant governor. I've enjoyed working with him, and his staff. They've done just a great job presiding over the state Senate. And it was a shock to me that Will had decided not to run for governor.
And it might be, some of our listeners may not know that the lieutenant governor actually precedes over the Senate, so you would know if he had done a good job or not.
He's done a very good job of working with each senator, trying to keep the train on the track every day. And most of you will know that sometimes in the Senate, bills have come out of the House with a 100-0 vote and run into all kind of roadblocks in the Senate. So Will has done a good job navigating all that and trying to keep the Senate on track and productive.
Okay, so we've heard rumors that Twinkle's going to get tapped to be rural development director by Trump. Do you think that Ainsworth may take that appointment instead? I mean, he seems like he'd have more of a handle on that than somebody that's been, monitoring the till for the power company for the last 20 years or however long Ms. Kavanaugh's been over there at the Public Service Commission. Anyway, I just think it's an interesting mix because you got a guy who everybody agrees is a nice guy, is from a very politically powerful family, and he has nothing to do. So what are we going to find for him to do? I would imagine he's going to find something to do in the Trump administration, but that's just me spitballing at it.
I think Will would be an asset for whatever job he wanted or was offered if he wanted to do it. He's done a remarkable job presiding over the Senate. He has been sort of a go-to guy when there was differences between the House and Senate. He's worked well with the Speaker, and I think he's worked well with every member of the state Senate, be they Republican or Democrat. And I have nothing but admiration for Will and his service as lieutenant governor.
So there was something, I can't remember who wrote it, but it was a tweet, and I meant to grab it. I missed it. So we allegedly have a senator who lives in Florida wanting to run for governor in a party being run by a guy from Tennessee. That's what Bill Britt would have you believe, if you watch that. So
I think we're all familiar with Bill Britt.
Yes, sir.
And his writing. So I don't know about the John Wall's residence in Tennessee. The only residence I've ever known is he and his family has been in Limestone County in Alabama. And so I
don't understand the big deal about having two residences. I mean, if I had more money, I'd probably have a house in Tennessee or Florida.
Well, I'm in North Alabama. and if I had second residence, it'd probably be down even south of both of you, probably in Florida.
There you go. Okay, so we got more fruit basket
A
turnover
lot
to
of
talk
water.
about.
Yeah.
Are you from? So Associate Justice Jay Mitchell just resigned on Monday, saying, "Hey, I'm going to raise money and run for AG," which left a vacancy on the Supreme Court, which got filled by Alabama Court of Civil Appeals Judge Bill Lewis. So you got Bill Lewis got moved up to the state Supreme Court, and wasn't it Albritton's law partner from Andalusia got this appointment on the Alabama Court of Civil Appeals, Brandon?
Yeah, Ben Bowden, but he hasn't been Tom Albritton's law partner in many a year. He's been a judge for a while now.
Okay.
Yeah, all those appointments, resignations, and appointments, and moving around, I have read those, but they just weren't in my bailiwick, so to speak. I just accepted they had happened, and that's it. So I don't know Bill Lewis, but I'm sure the governor thinks he'll do a good job on the court, and we'll just go from there.
So there's some more big news that came out this week. There was an interview with one of our congressmen who said that 4,700 additional jobs are coming to North Alabama along with Space Command. Do you hear that we definitely are going to get Space Command, or is that still?
I wouldn't put anything as definite right now, but we've heard up here for the last 2-3 years that Biden didn't make any effort to move Space Command from Colorado to North Alabama. He seemed to have supported that being in Colorado, but here's an old saying that we've had up here that in North Alabama, that if you wanted to go anywhere else in the country, you had to go through Atlanta. And we've got a saying up here that if you want to go to space, you've got to come through Huntsville. This is where all the research and development is done by NASA on the rocket motors and all of that. So we have a very significant place in the state of Alabama for space programs, and we would look for a transfer of Space Command back to North Alabama so they could be on the campus of NASA, Marshall Space Flight Center up here. And
so we're familiar with the history of Huntsville, in that one of our county commissioners and a friend of mine, his grandfather was one of the German rocket scientists brought over here under Operation Paperclip.
Sure.
So on a previous episode, we talked all about Huntsville and the rocket program and intercontinental ballistic missile development and all that kind of stuff. So,
Senator, is Redstone in your district or just outside
Redstone,
of it?
Part of it is in my district, and but I've been associated with Redstone forever. In the fact that my wife's father was a physicist for NASA for 48 years, so we were very interested in everything going on with NASA, as this whole community in North Alabama has been. Like I said, if you want to go to space, you've got to come through Huntsville. And I think that's a big positive for the state of Alabama.
Not if the number one contractor and owner of Twitter continues on his rampage. It's all going to be privatized. So here's a good one. A civil lawsuit has been filed in Lauderdale County claiming that Alabama game wardens search private properties violates the plaintiff's rights. And so
I now feel less safe and less comfortable hunting on my own land because I feel like I'm always looking over my shoulder.
Walking around my own property, I feel like I'm under surveillance because game wardens could be anywhere. My name is Dalton Boley. This is my home in Killen, Alabama, and this is our little escape from the world. Our neighbor Regina, she's got 10 acres out there that, as we got to know her, she gave us free reign to it and was just like, hey, if you can kind of help take care of this, you can kind of do what you want with it. And the boys have loved the opportunity to be able to camp in their backyard, but not feel like they're in their backyard. Like, they love to go set up that tent, roast marshmallows, hot dogs, and have that just kind of away time while still being right there in the backyard. And that's the great thing about the land, is it's covered with no trespassing signs. Like, no part of this is easily accessible. Like, you would have to fight your way through something in order to get there, or be hopping a fence.
My name is Dale Lyles, live here in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. I'm currently the director of the Colbert Lawrence Ducks Unlimited chapter. You know, they've been conserving wetlands for longer than I've been living. We've put a lot of sweat and energy, and I'd say love and passion into it.
The first time I ever learned of a game warden being on my property or having any interest in the property is when I found one of my cameras turned to the side and the other camera was watching the same field. I had pictures of him walking around and snooping around the woods without ever saying anything, without ever contacting me.
So it's late summer and I noticed a truck on the edge of my property. I waited, I hollered for him, didn't get any response. He got in his vehicle and left, you know, in a hurry. So I caught him going out the property and told him to pull over. I want to talk to him. I said, if there's something you take exception to on my property, let's me and you go back down there and you point it out to me.
The next time that the game warden showed up on my property, and the first time I interacted with them, I'm walking through my kitchen and I look out my back window and I see two game wardens at Regina's house at early in the morning knocking on her door. So I get dressed to kind of go see what's going on, and all of a sudden they're in my driveway talking to me and implying that I should know who they were and that I should know why they are there, and even admitted to being on the property more times than I was aware of. So I got a warning, and it seemed like they just did that because they needed to mark that they were here. Because when I asked, what have you seen or what do you have, I didn't get as clear answer.
To my knowledge, 3 times that cameras have caught him, you know, on our property. I do not know how many more times he's been there, but I'm sure there's several others. I have never, in my 57 years, had a violation for hunting.
One of the nice things when we first moved here, but prior to all this happening with the game wardens, is I could kind of keep tabs on my kids out there through the trail cameras, but now I don't know who else is watching my kids. I don't know who is watching them. I don't know who has videos or pictures of my kids, and that's scary in this world. I don't know who has it. I don't know what they're doing with those pictures. One of the biggest struggles that I've had since this happened is nature was my way to kind of decompress and get away from things after being in the military, and now I feel like I can't even do that.
They don't wear hunter arms when they're in the woods sneaking around, where we're required to. It's very dangerous. And hunting any property, including mine, it's very important to know where everyone's at all times, you know, when you're dealing with weapons. I have nothing but respect for the Fish and Game Department, but I think they should be subject to the same rules that apply to other law enforcement agencies.
I'm hoping this benefits everybody that's in the state, because I think as residents of Alabama, we should have the right to protect our own land.
That'll be one we'll be keeping an eye on down here. So another thing that you guys did, and I don't know if you had a hand in this other than knowing that it's the most corrupt organization on the planet, but you guys passed a bill creating a regional water board to take over for Birmingham Waterworks. So the day before the damn law takes effect. Birmingham Water Works Board approves a $3 million contract for lawyer Mark Purnell days before being replaced, including a $660,000 annual salary and a nearly unbreakable agreement. So everybody's getting golden parachutes after you guys, slapped them down. They're just slapping you in the face. And find an attorney general or anybody at the ethics commission that'll do a damn thing about it, State Senator. You can't find one. So
I think
this is a joke. I mean, you know it's a problem. You can't get anybody to do anything about it on the criminal justice side because everybody's pals with all these guys, right? Or politically connected. So the legislature comes in and jerks a knot in their head, and then they give everybody $3 million contracts and $660,000 golden parachutes, knowing that they're going to be gone.
I'm just glad it's not happening in my district, but all of that, and
well,
I tend to agree with you that, to me, all of that should be loaded up on a wagon and parked at the Attorney General's office.
So I was the county manager in Etowah County, had a career that I loved, and the United States government decided to put my father in prison for 10 years for violation of the Clean Water Act. He used to run the little water board down here in North Baldwin County. They spent $1 million trying to put him in jail and hung a felony on him for something. He stamped a document instead of signed it or something. And so anyway, when I hear about all these people stealing millions of dollars, and you got to understand, I quit my job and went to law school, so none of this kind of crap would ever happen to another member of my family, if you want to know my origin story. So when I see stuff like this and everybody just wrings their hands and says there's nothing we can do about it, it just really burns me up. So that's just a personal pet peeve.
I don't think there's litigation is going to happen.
Okay, we'll see. I'll guarantee you Mark Purnell will collect every nickel of that money, and the state bar will do jack all. No one will do anything about this.
I mean, I kind of think the current board will have something to say about this and probably a future courtroom. But yeah. I don't want to get ahead of the story.
Yeah. Okay, so let's I'm going to turn it over to you guys for a minute. So Brandon wrote the top 10 bills of the 2025 legislative session. And Brandon, when we get to one that you guys want to talk about here, the Choose Act,
we probably need to start with the pharmacy benefit manager legislation.
All right.
I don't know if that's even in my top 10, but it's something that Senator Butler, who is he's retired now, but he is a, pharmacist and owned his own pharmacy. So this was an issue he knows a whole lot more than I do about. Senator Butler, could you speak on the pharmacy benefit manager bill that passed?
Yeah, the pharmacy benefit managers are a group that different organizations or companies that are essentially middlemen in the process of a drug coming from the manufacturer, being prescribed by a physician, get into the local pharmacy, and then in the insurance and paying for that prescription. That's the sort of the chain. But to me, the pharmacy benefit managers are an unnecessary middleman in this whole process. They take a huge hunk out of every healthcare dollar, and they see no patients, provide no service of that kind. They're just a processor which they charge an enormous amount, percentage-wise, of every healthcare dollar. To me, they ought to be outlawed. They serve no practical purpose. We're hoping that the PBM bill that we in the Alabama legislature passed this year may help out our local pharmacies, many of them independent pharmacies that are on the verge of closing, and particularly in our rural areas where they're so necessary when there's no physician. You can go to the pharmacy. Generally, you can get help with your healthcare problems. The pharmacist can call your doctor. They can discuss what's going on, and the physician can make a judgment. But to me, the PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, are a total unnecessary organization that's just taking money right and left out of every healthcare dollar and driving up costs for the patient. And to me, it's just flat wrong.
Senator, specifically, what does this legislation do? I know the pharmacists were for it. I know you got pushback from the corporate pharmacy benefit managers. What changes when this goes into effect?
I'll have to pull up the bill to go through it paragraph for paragraph, but essentially it puts more transparency and sunshine in that whole process of what is charged by the manufacturer to the wholesaler down to the pharmacy, and then the payment by the insurance company, including the pharmacy benefit manager. And to me, they're totally unnecessary in the whole payment schedule for any prescription drug you get. They're driving up costs. They're preventing some people from being able to afford their prescriptions. And if I had a bill that I could get passed to totally outlaw them, I would.
Do you know how many small pharmacies we lost in the last 3 years in Alabama? Wasn't that the stat, Brandon? 3 years?
Yeah, I think it's the last 3 years. Is it like 140?
It's a big number. The State Board of Pharmacy could give you an exact number, but I can't right off. But I know in independent pharmacies, particular that I've talked to, pharmacists that I've talked to, they're hurting, and they're hurting big time with high cost of prescriptions coming, or drugs coming into their business, and the having the insurance companies through their PBM just clamping down and taking another hunk out of that dollar. And I fear for the survival of many, many of our local independent pharmacies across the state, from down in Daphne all the way to North Alabama up here.
As I understand it, if Brandon has insurance, and we will not name an insurance company, but I sign up with this insurance generally my employer signs up for this insurance, and they have a PBM, and the PBM says, hey, Brandon, you can only go to pharmacies on our preferred network. And there's like 3 or 4 major PBMs. So if, Harry has a pharmacy, if he wants to stay in business, he needs to be on the preferred list for those major PBMs in his area. Otherwise, he won't have any customers.
Well,
and what was happening was that in many cases, the amount that the PBM was reimbursing the pharmacist for was less than the cost of the drug from a wholesaler that supplies it. So in many cases, our independent pharmacists were losing money, with the prescription. They would actually lose money on the deal because they've been strong-armed into taking a contract rate for filling these individual drugs, and the pharmacy could not buy the drugs at the rate that they're charging, and this bill changes that. Am I right?
Yes.
No, that's an oversimplification.
This is a national issue, and I have been told, I don't know exactly, but I've been told that President Trump is probably going to intercede with legislation federally that would address some of the wrongdoings of the pharmacy benefit manager. And I would applaud him in doing that. It's something that's a nationwide problem, and particularly for rural areas where the cost of drugs continues to climb for the individual patients, that people like the PBMs that are taking a chunk of money and providing no service, they ought to be outlawed.
So, Brandon, do you want to move on to the cannabis bill?
Yeah, we can do that. Y'all also passed House Bill, I think, was it 445? I think it was carried by, sponsored by Andy Witt, Republican from Harvest, down in the House. And then it went upstairs and was carried by the next senator over from you, Tim Melson, Republican out of Florence. To regulate and tax psychoactive cannabinoids. And I think it took a lot of higher milligram or higher THC cannabinoids, just made it outlawed altogether in Alabama. What was your experience with that, Senator Butler?
Well, as a pharmacist and somebody who's practiced 52 years and now retired for almost 3, I voted no on the hemp bill. To me, we're having a problem that the hemp was being sold primarily at convenience stores and gas stations, and it was becoming readily available to young people to buy the hemp products. And I saw no practical purpose for those. We don't need to be teaching our kids to smoke something to get high. And we have enough problems with alcohol. But these kind of things, trying to legalize them, when you try to regulate it, to me, you're just legalizing the drug. And I was totally against that, voted no all the way through those bills.
So you were in favor of something like April Weaver's bill that would have been more of a ban.
Yes. Those kind of products, one, they shouldn't be in gas stations. If drugs like that, addictive drugs that make you high, stuff like that, need to be in the medical pipeline and go through a pharmacy. And so we can talk with patients about the medications they're already on, and talk to the doctor about what we know about this patient's history on medications. It's a bill that, to me, was totally improper, shouldn't have been put in the hopper, and I voted no both times.
So do you know how much money the alcohol lobby spent to get this bill passed?
I had no idea.
Did you see those people? They didn't come see you?
No.
So as a practitioner, what's a lethal dose of THC? How much THC does it take to kill you?
There is no legal dose for it.
That's correct. And is there a medicinal purpose for it? Why would it be a Schedule I drug? It's an illegal drug in the country. No, it's a Schedule I drug, meaning it has no medical purpose. But Alabama established a medical cannabis board. So I don't know how we can have it 7 different ways on cannabis. It's illegal because there's no medical purpose for it, except Alabama set up a medical board. And people are going to they're going to be, Mike Dow's grandchildren are going to be richer than the damn Vanderbilts because he's got an integrated permit or will have. Flowerwood Nursery over here, generational wealth. They're going to be they might as well own a damn railroad. Okay. And, the fact that one of the most competent men I've ever met, John McMillan, is like a kid trying to pick up a damn beach ball in high wind. He can't seem to get anything done. He's got incompetent lawyers working for him. They can't get the process right. It's all a big. I don't know what's going on here, but the idea that John McMillan can't get something done is a bunch of bull, and the idea that what you did with this bill was you're going to have to hire 75 more AB or whatever they are, not ABI. ABC agents, and we're going to have 5 more offices, and we're going to have 45 more cars. And it doesn't seem very Republican to me how we try to legislate our way into utopia. The other bill that I wanted to talk to you about real quickly is the police immunity bill. And this is on our radar because Sheriff Mack resigned this time last year and took Bobby Timmons' old job. And I'm sure you know Randy Hillman from his days over at the Office of Prosecution Services. So we got their little dream team over here.
Senator Butler probably knows Rex Reynolds, who I think y'all's districts overlap a little bit.
Yeah, Rex I know extremely well. And he was with the Huntsville Police Department for a long, long time, retired from there.
Yeah, that was his bill.
Well, so it's my understanding that this bill requires a preliminary hearing when there's an officer involved shooting. If somebody files a lawsuit, the officer immediately gets a preliminary hearing. So right now, under state law, everything's a public record unless, of course, it's involved in an investigation, and then it's covered in the Grand Jury Secrets Act. That's how they've been able to exclude providing this to the press, okay? So if you're going to have a preliminary hearing, I don't know how you do it without showing the video in open court. And I think I don't think it's going to end up doing what everybody thinks it's going to do. Another thing.
Are you still there, Senator?
He's on the line.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So the other good news I saw this week, Laniap is reporting that the McCrary Institute has stopped payments to Matrix LLC. Are you familiar with Matrix LLC and their lawsuit, Pitts and Perkins?
Oh, I'm familiar with
Alabama Power Company. Yeah, about the time you were getting your degree from Auburn, Mr. Perkins was formulating his plan to take over society through manipulation and political blackmail.
Yeah, I think if Governor Ivey had any problems that she would think would interfere with her doing her job, I think she would make the right decision. And I don't see that. I've worked well with her for a number of years. To me, she's still functioning well. And every time I've had to talk to her during the session, she is cognizant of what's going on. She knows the job probably better than anybody we've had in that. If you look at her history of serving as state treasurer, she knows all about state's money. As lieutenant governor, she knows all about the legislature. She's been a part of that, making decisions as lieutenant governor and now as governor. To me, she's doing a good job, and I couldn't say anything adverse about Kay Ivey.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering if you knew anything about her plans to exodus or anything like that prior to the end of her.
I have not been able to confirm any of those rumors, and that is not my reporting. That's Kyle Whitmire at AL.com, and I think he's moved to Washington, D.C., so he doesn't live here anymore.
Yeah. So, let's see. We're going to talk a little national politics real quick. House votes to pass one big, beautiful bill. And then, of course, as we were just talking about, concerns rise over medical coverage losses from big, beautiful bill. And I think that's because there's a requirement that you have to apply for work 4 times a month to stay on Medicaid. Trump accepts generous gift, Imperial class destroyer from Emperor Palpatine. I thought that was pretty good. China's SS UAV unveiled at 2024 air show is slated for its maiden flight in June 2025. This thing cruises at 15,000 meters and can carry a 1,000 kilogram payload of hundreds of drones that get dropped from this thing like bombs, Brandon. A little bit smarter than a smart bomb.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fighter jets and all, you know, I mean, I love our pilots and everything. I kind of think us and China, you know, are kind of headed toward where the future isn't, you know, a guy in a plane, you know, shooting rockets at a target. It's probably something like this, you know, a big drone that, you know, flies around and it releases swarms of little drones that go off and attack targets.
Yeah, and it never has to sleep, and it has to land once a month to refuel, maybe, right?
I don't know about all that now, but yeah, it can certainly stay up a lot longer than a man, and when you don't have a man on board, that's weight you can use for either more fuel or more ordnance.
So how Trump's family-linked crypto deals are threatening the Hunter Biden-style scandal at the White House, threatening a Hunter Biden-style scandal at the White House. So are you aware they had a big meme coin dinner the other night at Mar-a-Lago?
They've got Bitcoin. Well, we just had Hunter Biden in there for 4 years, and I don't remember him being prosecuted for influence peddling, and the Bidens have been doing it for, you know, a generation. I mean, yeah, it's probably because Trump is president that people are interested in his Bitcoin or, you know, whatever his, you know, the Trump digital currency is. But I don't see anything necessarily criminal about this.
Okay, well, it's absolutely no different than them handing you bars of gold to come to your, you know, whatever. So anyway, Representative Nancy.
That was bribery. This is just, you know, hey, we're hosting investors.
These are investments in things that don't have any basis in value. So it's completely okay. I get it. So I hope our senator doesn't have any problems like Representative Nancy Mace. Anyway.
I don't know who Nancy Mace is.
So a bunch of naked photos appeared of her online.
She's a congresswoman. She's just not from our state.
Right.
With all these people who got cameras on their phone and taking pictures all over, you know, whenever, with whoever, yeah, you're probably going to get more of that in the future.
So they didn't have camera phones back when I had a good physique, so... Yeah, you don't have to worry about anybody finding any nudes of hair.
I'm not going to be taking photos of myself. Hopefully, we have another Senator Tuberville coming out for his governor's deal. We don't need to see that.
No. So the FEMA chief has been fired after defying Trump just weeks before hurricane season. Ex-Navy SEAL and FEMA head axed after breaking with Trump on live mic. So, yeah, he's done.
Yeah, you show disrespect to your commander-in-chief, you get fired.
So I got a good one. Go ahead.
I said, I think that's the protocol. I know of every job I've ever had from when I first started working at the drugstore at age 16. I didn't do my job, or I dared speak back to the pharmacist or the owner of the drugstore, I know where I'd be. But,
yeah, I've never worked for a news outlet where I could attack the publisher of the news outlet and be working there the next day.
That's right. I think all of us somewhere along the line have had somebody that we had to respect, look up to, and receive a paycheck from. And it required us to do our job.
Okay, well, apparently we're in a in competition with Harvard University also because we've decided that we're not going to let any of their international students back on campus. And so I tweeted, maybe now I can get into Harvard. 1 in 3 million is a hell of a lot better than 1 in 5 billion chance, right? So maybe they'll invite me there to finish my PhD. And then I said, oh, never mind, I'm white.
I don't remember taking a college visit to Harvard.
No,
it never occurred to me.
I didn't get an invite. I got invited to like Troy and Auburn. South. Nobody.
I didn't get an invite there either. But
okay, so Trump's joint birthday and military parade celebration in D.C. So they're putting down like metal plates on top of the asphalt so the tanks don't tear up the roads. And anyway, they figure it's going to cost $45 million in fuel. I think that's all they're counting there, because we own the rest of the stuff, right? All these guys will be doing something somewhere else. We're going to have to get a couple of hotel rooms or whatever, but really it's just costing us the fuel. So it's going to cost $45 million in fuel to fly all these planes and tanks and all this bullshit to D.C. for some big Caesar type. It just seems like a bunch of overkill.
That metal tracks is going to cost us a little bit, too.
Well, shit, we got the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds. Let them jump out of planes and fly all around D.C. and stuff, and you don't need all those tanks and soldiers. And anyway.
They have an air show here in Montgomery. It costs us some money. I know the Navy was here. It was kind of cool.
Well, we'll see how that goes. I'm going to stick to Montgomery and leave Washington to Washington.
There you go. So today's Memorial Day, and there was a laying of the wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. That all went down pretty well, and then President Trump took an opportunity to tweet ugly things at some of our judges while he was at it. So anyway, today is there. Have y'all seen the pirate ship, the fake pirate ship that rides around Orange Beach, and it's got little cannons that it fires off? It shoots like dried ice out. And so anyway, there's a beautiful picture of that today. And then I wanted to remind everybody that this past Friday was Danny Williams Day. He died at the same place in this photograph. He was actually right over here on this beach. The Friday of Memorial Day weekend 2022. And of course, he supposedly drowned. And anyway, that's all I'll say about that. It's one of my active cases. So I don't know if you saw, there was a big talk about a bunch of guys wasting a bunch of money. So up at the Aaliyah Marine Patrol Division had a big confab up at, was it Weiss Lake? One of the lakes up there. Ahead of
Weiss Lake.
Yeah, ahead of Memorial Day weekend.
Cherokee County.
And they had anyway, they had a big press conference, and they said, hey, if you're drinking and boating, you're going to get arrested, unless, of course, you're driving the boat that Danny Williams is on, and then they're going to just let you go. I thought this was interesting.
We do have a problem with people being intoxicated on boats, so
yeah,
and those go a lot faster than we were kids.
We really don't. I'm down there all the time, and if there were a bunch of drunk people running around on boats, they'd be running into stuff. So anyway,
if there are drunks on boats, they need to be arrested.
Okay, well, so you notice this picture here. What's missing are the faces of the sheriff's deputies that have been blocked out before they sent the image out where they caught this dangerous felon who'd been running through the woods for 6 hours in a fluorescent. You see his shirt? Did you think about taking the shirt off, dude? Seriously, the high-res yellow shirt he's hiding from. So anyway, I thought this was pretty interesting. I'm just walking around the courthouse, and instead of having like pictures of judges and stuff, for some reason, we can't do enough worshiping of law enforcement in this state. We've now got plaques of former police chiefs hanging in the courthouse. And like I said...
Well, I mean, everybody who knows their police chief, courthouse,
okay,
where they were.
Before you put up
I got no problem putting them and retired judges on there.
Mm-hmm. Except, Harry has a real long memory, and I can promise you if you go back, and that's what I said, this picture might come back and bite you. You might want to go check the newspaper from yesteryear about the old chief and all the stuff he was up to.
The former chief.
I couldn't agree with you more. So FBI investigates 2023 White House cocaine find and leak of Supreme Court Dobbs draft. So you guys remember all that? So this is what Kash Patel says. He's going to be dropping off soon, right? Anyway, I don't want to watch this. I think we're going to run it at the end. But Dan Bongino on Jeffrey Epstein, I've seen the file. He killed himself. Okay. Well, it's just like this.
That's what the file says. You can't make it otherwise. I will always have doubts about that, really. But, Bongino has seen the file, and the file says it's a suicide.
And Cash Patel says, I used to be a federal prosecutor and a public defender, and I've been in a jail before, and I know what a suicide looks like, and this was a suicide. That's a bunch of bullcrap. And saying that they've seen the file, it's what got put in the file that's missing. Go do some investigation,
but you can't prosecute people on what's not in the file. You'd have to prosecute people based on what's in the file. And the file says it's a suicide. Case closed.
Okay, well, maybe you don't understand what so their edict was to come in and investigate, not review the damn file and tell us what we already know.
Reviewed the file. It says a suicide. Moving on.
So what? Okay, and what about the so do you know what Pam Bondi said to her damn nanny the other day in a bar that got caught by Project Veritas? That there are thousands and thousands of videos of Epstein and these other men abusing underage girls. So where are the thousands and thousands of videos, and who all's in them? If this is such a nothing burger. Okay.
Well, it's a suicide, but it didn't say that's a nothing burger.
Okay.
They didn't say
we're waiting.
Committed suicide, didn't they?
Okay. So I thought I would talk about this. This happened in Tennessee, but this is important to all of us. This is a huge win for the First Amendment in Middle Tennessee. The Institute for Justice Attorney Gerald McLean said, attorneys have a right to discuss their cases, and the public has the right to know what the government and its contractors are doing. That brings us to the new rules that came out this week. So everybody hates Alexander Shannara's billboards, right? I do. I think they're pollution. And I also hate Morgan & Morgan's stupid-ass commercials about how they're the biggest and the best. And it makes our whole profession look like a bunch of ambulance-chasing jackasses. So anyway, the Alabama State Bar, in their feeble attempt to do anything, have come up with this deceptive practices. You can't, the Alabama hammer guy, that he's got the thing he shoots at the deer.
He shoots the big bucks. Yeah, right. We've all seen the commercial.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's a Chicago lawyer. You know what I mean? Like, he's not from here. And so anyway, you have to disclose that now, and you can't run certain commercials at certain times. Anyway, that's the big news there. So anyway, Baldwin County courtroom space issues resolved with a new Alabama law. I was so glad that Grudger got his act together right there at the last minute. And don't think that the people that watched this didn't see what was going on right there at the Senate at the last minute. But our little local bills almost didn't pass because of that log jam. And y'all need to get these local bills on.
Did it?
So anyway,
I agree with you. Local bills ought to take precedence, and they generally do. We usually do local bills first, and then the other agenda. But I agree with you on that. Local bills need to take precedence over whatever we're doing.
So Governor Ivey tweeted or put on Facebook this little meme, and it says, Alabama is the most pro law enforcement state in the nation. And I will say that law enforcement is absolutely necessary for everything that I do in my job. And the ones that are good guys, they know that they can come to me and I'll do a will for them, won't charge them anything. Just anything I can do for, hell, from a mailman to anybody that works for the public, right? Firemen, whoever. But this worship of law enforcement and this bull crap that they're outmanned and outgunned, and every time they have an interaction, every time they get in their vehicle, every time they put their badge on, they put on a bulletproof vest. I remember when our cops in Bay Minette had the shittiest cars in Alabama. There were about 10 of them, and they all had bald tires, and they had 6-shooters they had to buy themselves. And now we got ARAPs, armored personnel carriers, Things that Los Angeles SWAT had 10 years ago. Every sheriff's department in Alabama has an intelligence unit now. We're using the flock camera system at Clearview AI. Well, sure we are. And now we've got this new edict that we're going to come up with this new database for what they call them, criminal enterprises. And I could
enterprises. That was last bill.
Well, I mean, we can break it down into the 3 or 5 families that have dog tracks in this state. You don't need to be a genius to keep up with that. Okay. Well, anyway, we sure are, and now all their kids go to school for free, and now apparently, as long as you have your badge on. Oh, that bill didn't pass.
The scholarships for law enforcement bill did not pass.
Wow, I thought that was the first one that passed.
It passed in the House, but Senator Butler probably remembers it was on the calendar to be addressed in the Senate, but the filibuster crap they had on the local bills, and then the Back to Blue bill, meant that the Senate never got to the scholarships for law enforcement officers bill in the Senate on the last day. So that did not pass.
Well, the idea that you're going to commit violence on a law enforcement officer in Alabama and they're not going to throw the book at you, or you harass a cop and the DA is not going to, prosecute you, is a bunch of bull. So conversely, when a law enforcement officer who's representing me does something to one of my fellow citizens and they tell me I can't see the body camera, that makes me want to slap the shit out of somebody, Brandon, because I paid for that body camera and that guy's working for me. There's nobody more pro law enforcement. I sometimes leave the keys in my truck and forget to lock my shed, and it's because there's law enforcement out there, but not law enforcement that's acting with impunity. And hey, we gotta back them up. Well, no, you have to look at it critically. And if they did something wrong, you need to disclose it. Easy. Every shoot's not a good shoot. That would be
between the court and them.
And every shoot's not a bad shoot either. And that's why there needs to be, but it doesn't need to be a damn secret where the district attorney, I don't even know who the sheriff of Lauderdale County is, but I know who the DA is. And I can bet you if the sheriff told him what was what, that Chris Conley would be on board with it, just like down here in Baldwin County. I know how these things work from county to county and place to place. So let's talk a little bit about a good news story. Of course, the police officer is standing back while the citizen helps the alligator across the road in Orange Beach. But he had his gun at the ready in case he had to shoot the alligator. Let's see. Settlement hearing scheduled for Lauderdale County judge accused of misusing funds for personal use. This is, of course, Judge Self. He was our judge original judge in the, I'm sure you know the Hibbett family. I represented Mr. Hibbett in the post-divorce action. He was our judge. And anyway, he recused right about the time he got indicted. So I'm familiar with Judge Self, and that's really the shame of the Alabama State Bar and the judiciary, that case right there. $140,000 stolen from the damn law library fund. So anyway, if you see this weird little sailboat-looking thing floating around out here, the University of Southern Mississippi is partnering with and testing emerging technologies with Ocean Aero, the developer of an advanced unmanned ocean system relocated from San Diego to Gulfport, Mississippi, where it now revolutionizes maritime exploration out of the port of Gulfport. So they're doing like LIDAR underwater and mapping the bottom and other cool stuff. But yeah, that thing can stay out there pretty much forever. I think it's solar powered, and they just kind of program it and turn it loose. Gulf Shores had its first ever commercial flight to Alabama's beaches with Allegiant Air this past week. I was staffed to Jack Owers Airport for 5 years.
To Houston.
Yeah, so that's kind of personal to me too. I worked down there for a while. Fisherman Charlie Gray has been appointed to the Conservation Advisory Board. He's a lifelong Mobile Bay fisherman. So maybe we'll be able to keep more than 3 flounder next year. Here are the average red snapper per artificial reef, and you see we're up to 140 fish per reef in 2024, and that is important because red snapper season opened yesterday and will be open, until we catch the quota, whenever that is. Are you familiar with the Nottoway Plantation in Iberville? Yeah, it burned down, and there was a bunch of racial stuff about it. And
where was that at?
This is over in
It
Louisiana.
was the largest surviving antebellum mansion that we had in the South, in Mississippi. It burned down last week.
My goodness.
So anyway, I thought it was very interesting. I read an article. There was a lot of things about, this is I'm glad it burned down because it's a, symbol of slavery and all this. And anyway, this girl, or not a girl anymore, she's in her 60s, but she said it was a black lady, and she said her first job was working at that place as a museum, and she has very fond memories of it, and it was a wonderful place.
I mean, who do they think built the thing? It's most likely black craftsmen who built the thing on orders of their masters in the 1850s.
Right. I mean, don't you wish we still had stonemasons that could do that around nowadays? Right. So anyway, it was kind of a flashpoint, and I didn't know if anybody else saw that play out on Twitter like I did, but it was nice to have somebody with a spine stand up and say, it's just a shame that we lost this facility and structure, and like you said,
Mississippi.
Yeah. So does everybody know that Phil Robertson was greeted in heaven today by 12 million angry ducks that he killed? That's not very funny. Anyway.
He's always came out and expressed his love of Jesus and that he was saved. So I'm very confident if he thought he made it, it's him, and he's probably out there hunting ducks in heaven.
And eating biscuits. Eating biscuits in a sauce piquant. So George went, and this is another, Norm from Cheers. So that's his greeting at the pearly gates. Were you a big Cheers fan, Brandon?
I am familiar with the TV show, but no, I wasn't. It's people that sit in a bar and crack jokes.
Okay, well, I actually had the Cheers trivia board game.
I would lose that game.
All right, well, that's it for this week. Senator, is there anything you want to tell us about going on in your world up there? Anything important coming up that we need to know about around the rest of the state?
Well, the biggest thing that we've got on our mind generally up here is to wait for President Trump to make a decision on Space Command, which will be a big boost to not only our economy, but to the state of Alabama. So that's what we got our own right now. Until that decision is made, it'll probably be on our mind for a while.
How about you, Brandon? Legislature's out of town. What's going on in Montgomery?
Rumor has it that Tommy Tuberville is going to declare for governor probably as soon as Thursday. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what the rumor is. We're kind of trying to chase that down right now.
Well, we love a good rumor.
If he declares, I think he enters this with Ainsworth cleared out now. He enters as the front runner. I mean, I don't know who else. I mean, Chad, Chick Martin, and some other folks are running on the Democrat side, but seriously, I mean, the only serious candidate in that race, as far as I can tell, is Tuberville, assuming he gets in.
I've got one more thing I wanted to ask you about. So, do you remember there was a guy that was the head of the Young Republicans? I want to say he was in Madison County, and he murdered. Yeah,
me and Senator Butler both know Kyle Luter, and I don't know what happened there.
Okay, but I have a question about it.
He killed his, gay partner. I mean, as a Christian, I think that's Stephen's possession. Because Kyle, I always liked Kyle. I mean, he was a good dude. I knew the guy that he murdered. I don't know what makes anyone do something like that to somebody close to them. But you know, we'll see what comes out in the trial when they have it.
So
you think you'd like to add Senator Butler?
Well, he was accused.
I can't add a thing to that. I know he was in. He's been transferred to the Madison County Jail, and that's where he is now. I don't know when there's a trial to be set. You know as much as I do on that.
Well, so
because the court ruled that he is mentally competent to stand trial.
Well, that's one reason I think they moved him back.
Yeah, that's why they moved him from
Madison County, because he was in Tuscaloosa for what we know about Tuscaloosa, but he's back in the county jail here, and I haven't seen him or spoken to him, and I just don't know how that's going to play out.
I haven't spoken to Kyle either since he got arrested. I'm still flabbergasted.
So the man that he killed,
I think all of us were.
The man that he killed was a guy named Derek Walls. Is that any kin to John Wall?
No.
Different Walls?
I think Wall, John Wall, W-A-H-L. This was W-A-L-L-S. Wall.
I got you. And so anyway, he's charged with murder and sexual torture. And we will see how that goes. All right. Well, State Senator, we really appreciate your time. We hope you have what's left of a good Memorial Day. And, hey, anytime that you have any legislation you want to talk about, get in touch with Brandon and come on the podcast. We'd love to have you.
Well, I'd be glad to do that, and I enjoyed speaking with both of you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Y'all have a good one.
Mr. Director, worry not. We'll make sure your agency is adequately funded. This judge you arrested in Wisconsin, she was breaking federal law, wasn't she?
Yes, that's why we arrested her.
She was helping an illegal immigrant escape being taken into custody. Is that right?
Yes, and the field agents decided to open the case, work the case.
And as Americans, do we get to pick and choose which laws we want to follow?
We do not.
If you're a state court judge, do you get to decide you don't want to follow federal law?
No.
And if you violate federal law, you get arrested, don't you?
Yes, Senator.
That's called equal treatment under the law, isn't it?
Yes, Senator.
You remember Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, don't you?
Yes, Senator.
Mr. Strzok worked for the FBI. Mr. Strzok worked for the FBI. I think Ms. Page worked for Justice. The Inspector General found in its investigation that they hated President Trump, and they really wanted Secretary Clinton to win. Is that true?
That's correct, sir.
And this would be the same same Ms. Page who sent an email to Mr. Strzok with whom she was having an affair. Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? And Mr. Strzok with the FBI, senior official at the FBI replied, quote, no, he won't. We'll stop it. Did I read that correctly?
You did, Senator.
Okay. Now, Ms. Page got quit before she could get fired. Mr. Strzok was fired. And predictably, they filed a lawsuit because in Washington, it's easier to divorce your spouse than it is to fire a federal employee. Why did the FBI give Mr. Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Page $800,000 to settle a lawsuit?
Senator, I do not know that settlement was reached in the prior administration.
Who made the decision?
The prior Department of Justice.
Who in the prior Department of Justice?
The settlement for that kind of case can only come from the Attorney General, which would be Attorney General Merrick Garland.
So the Attorney General decided to give Mr. Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Page $800,000 after they were fired after actively interfering in the 2016 election. Is that right?
My understanding is that was a settlement they agreed to.
Pass me the sick bucket, please. The Hunter Biden laptop. In October of 2016, shortly before the election, the New York Post wrote a story that was widely covered talking about Mr. Hunter Biden's influence peddling scheme based on his laptop. A couple of weeks later, Secretary of State, soon to be Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, organized a group of 51 so-called intelligence experts. Had some real rock stars on the list. Jim Clapper, John Brennan, Michael Hayden, Leon Panetta, and they said, oh, no, the story in the New York Post is not true. It's based on Russian disinformation. You remember that?
I do, Senator, as the lead investigator for Russiagate for the House Intel Committee.
Yeah. The FBI had the laptop for 10 months, hadn't they?
They did, Senator.
So the FBI knew right before the election that it wasn't Russian disinformation, didn't they?
And that was confirmed by the Inspector General's report.
Yeah. Who at the FBI refused to let the FBI tell the American people the truth?
I don't have that name in front of me, sir.
Well, would you look?
I will, sir.
I'd like to know. I'd like a name, not a division. I'd like the name. Person with a brain and a beating heart.
Yes, sir.
Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself or did somebody kill him?
Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When do you think you'll have it done, Cash?
I think in the near future, sir.
Like before I die?
Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way that protects victims and also doesn't put out into the ether information that is irrelevant for production of the public, such as CSAM.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.